Hey yo, it's your boy Monster Man Rocco.
It's your boy Swagger Rock.
This is Snack the Ripper.
Hey, you rap for those who don't know.
This is Master Ace. You are now rocking with the best. Breaking Records Radio.
Breaking Records, man.
Breaking Records Radio.
Breaking Records Radio.
Breaking Records.
Breaking Records.
Breaking Records Radio. Let's go.
Breaking Records Radio.
Press 5 now, how you check Breaking Records Radio.
Breaking Records, man. Radio is like the place to be. I don't fuck strange music, man.
Alright, you are now tuned in to Breaking Records Radio. I have here with me an underground giant and psychological records artist, Mr. Hyde. You know him from albums like Barn of the Naked Dead, Chronicles of the Beastman, and his latest album, The Boogeyman Is Real. What's good, my man?
What's going on, Alex? How you feeling, man?
Oh man, I'm doing good. Thanks so much for taking the time out to speak to me here today. I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to this talk.
No problem, man. Let's go.
So what I like to do here is I generally like to start with some history, and from the moment that I ever discovered you, you were down with the PLR camp, which is great, and I think it introduced you to a lot of people. However, I'm curious to talk about your solo career and a little bit before that. How did you personally end up getting introduced to hip hop and hip hop culture?
Oh, okay. So hip hop in general. Well, basically, growing up in the '80s and stuff, like in my neighborhood, there was a mix of everything, like everything that was on the radio at that point. There might have been like some Run DMC, some like Fresh Prince, like shit like that, like would be in the commercial radio. And then, but as far as me getting introduced to the underground was probably around in junior high school, I would say, maybe around like 1990, 91, like that. Listening to stuff like Rakim and Big Daddy Kane and Cool G Rap. But I got introduced from like older cousins of mine. So my oldest cousin, he would always rock shit like anything from Metallica to Slick Rick to Cool G Rap to to freestyle music. I'm Italian and shit, so I grew up in a little bit of that culture too. So like all that old '80s Lisa and the Cult Jam, like Johnny O shit, and he'd have mixtapes. I'd be driving in this, I'd be in this car in the passenger seat, and he'd pop on a mixtape, and you'd hear something like Run DMC, Big Daddy Kane, then like Lisa and the Cold Jam, and then like Rain and Blood, like Slayer would pop on, and so I was open to a lot of that stuff. And then on top of that, when I was really young, my mother had a huge vinyl collection, a record collection, and as a kid I was really exposed to music young, and I would just put on the headphones and listen to all her records, and she had all sorts of shit from like Barry White to like the OJs, and she listened to a lot of like the Beatles and things like that. So, I was always musically inclined, but my first remembering, my first recollection of hip hop was probably like Run DMC and the Fresh Prince and like that type of shit when I was a preteen, maybe 10 years old, 11 years old, like that. But like I said, I started getting into it heavy in more like 1990, 91 because of my cousin. And then a little bit later, I was introduced by one of my friends to the Stretch and Bobbito show. Now I was already a teenager now, and this is probably around 93-ish, like 90, no, maybe even earlier than that, 92. I would say this is like 92. I started rapping in 92, probably directly because of the Stretch and Bobbito show, because at the end of the show, they'd always take callers, and the callers would come on and rhyme over whatever beats they were playing, and they would let them, like, I guess for the last half hour of the show, they'd let callers call up and rap. So I remember just writing something specifically to rap at the end of the Stretch of Bobbito so I could call up and with my friend and rap. And the first couple of times I did that, I probably sucked. And they, because my first couple of rhymes.
Yeah, you get better over time, yeah.
Yeah. So they had like let me rhyme for like 3 seconds and hung up on me, right? So, but what's funny is like, I don't know, maybe like the 10th time I called, a little bit later, like, I was just continually just keep writing. We'd write like, me and my friend would write like 10 rhymes a day. And then, I remember the one time I called and it was, Stretch wasn't there, and it was Bobbito and Lord Sear. And I started rapping, and it was really evil. When I first started rapping, I was violent. So I was rapping violent, evil shit, but crazy, outlandish shit. And, Lord Sear started laughing and giggling or whatever. It was like, and then started to talk over me. And then Bobbito said, wait, let me hear him. Let him keep rapping. I want to hear what he has to say.
Encouragement, yeah.
So when I heard that, I was like, my friend was bugging. He was like, oh shit, Bobbito wants to hear you, So I got all gassed up, and, I started writing 20 rhymes a day. You know what I mean? So it was one of those things. And I was a young kid, maybe 13, 12, 13, you know what I mean? Like that. So, but then I really got into like the underground hip hop scene once I got exposed to that show. I wouldn't even go to school on Friday mornings. It was on Thursday nights from like 1 to 5. So I would listen all night, stay up. I'm like, yo, stretching Barbados, and I ain't going to fucking school tomorrow. You know? Oh, I don't know if we could curse on here.
You can curse 100%. Yeah.
Good, because you have a definite a cursor. You're interviewing her.
Not a problem. So was writing the first thing that kind of appealed to you in terms of hip hop, or were you like dancing or like doing graph or anything prior to that?
There was little graffiti crews. I grew up in Queens, so there were little graffiti crews, and well, not little ones, I mean, big ones and smaller ones, and everybody like had a tag, and everybody would fuck around with graffiti. So I did too, you know, a little bit. I had a little tag, little throw ups and this and that. We would do on the bus, scratching your tag on the window of the bus, shit like that. But I never got heavy into it. Like I had friends that would break night, go out all night, and just, you know, I was more into, if I was gonna break night, it was listening to the radio show or writing rhymes or sleeping over my friend's house, fucking playing video games all night, like that type of shit. But the first thing I did before hip hop was probably like that little bit of graffiti, and then my friend had turntables. He had Technique 1200s, and he would do like little house parties and backyard parties, and he had 2 of every record, and he would mix together like a little reggae, some hip hop, and we would just go together. I would carry the records, and then we would do like, and eventually I would start emceeing and like kicking rhymes in between, and we host little open mics at these house parties. And that's kind of like where we started. I would kick the rhymes that I had wrote for the Stretch and Bobbito show and kick them at house parties and backyard parties with my boy. And then eventually we started, like, we had the tape deck and a little microphone, and we started just using the B-sides of people's records in like 92, 93, and just rap over the beats of people's B-sides. And we had like 3-4 albums worth of other people's beats with our, you know, original shitty lyrics back then.
Were you going by Hyde at that period of time?
Not yet. Actually, my first hip hop name was The Catastrophe.
That's fantastic.
But because my real name is Christopher, right?
Yeah.
So when I was younger, when I was a little kid, my family members, my older family members, my uncles and shit like that, they used to call me Christopher Catastrophe because I was a menace. You know, I used to break things, you know, run through the house and fuck shit up. You know, always be physical, want to wrestle with my uncles, and you know, just a crazy, energetic kid. So they called me Christopher Catastrophe. So the name kind of stuck, so I kept it. And then the funny thing is, I always wanted to be original and not fight anybody. And later on, after like a year of rapping, having the name, or 2 years of, you know, keeping the name and rhyming, I realized that the dude from the Alcoholics, Tash, was short for Catastrophe, and I had no idea. So the one of the rappers from the group The Alcoholics, and I liked that group, and I just wanted to be original, so I changed it. It just happened because me and my boy, we had a group called Catch 22, and we were kind of like total opposites. He would rhyme really like similes, metaphors, and like very scientifical and complicated, like, you know, type lyrics, and I would be violent and brutal and, you know, and evil. So we actually did a song called Jekyll and Hyde back then. You know, we had written one just for that, like kind of like a positive and negative type, you know, the Jekyll and Hyde type track. So then on the track I say on the song I said Mr. Hyde, you know, and personified myself as that. So I just kept it from there, you know. So it kind of worked. And at that point there was no Google and there was no, you know, so nobody else had the name. I never heard of the name before, and you know, nobody was really rapping brutal and evil back then. So, except a couple people like Bushwood Bill, you know, shit like that I had heard. And, so, you know, nobody had the name. And now there's the fucking energy drink, the pre-workout drink, Mr. Hyde. There's, you know, like, well, there's fucking 12 different rappers on Spotify and digital named Mr. Hyde. It's like nobody even cares anymore. Nobody has the decency to check Google and see that I've had the name the longest in hip hop. So like, it doesn't even matter. Even though I'm the most prominent, you know, I come up first and all, but still, I mean, my hashtags, when you click in my name, are flooded with all different Mr. Hyde bullshit. So, you know.
Fair enough.